Disclaimer: this content is intended only for mature audiences. Viewer discretion is advised. The soft glow of the moonlight slipped through the white curtains, casting a silver haze across the wooden floors of our quiet suburban home. I was only half awake, drifting between a dream and reality, when I felt the gentle weight of my husband's presence beside me. His touch was familiar, comforting, like the first warm sip of tea on a cold morning, but there was something different about that night. A quiet urgency. A silent longing. I kept my eyes closed, unsure if I was dreaming or simply caught in a moment I didn't yet understand. My name is Anya, and I'm a Russian woman living in the heart of Virginia with my husband, David. We met 7 years ago on a trip that neither of us were supposed to take, and somehow, fate led us back to each other over and over until we couldn't fight it anymore. Our love is quiet, like soft jazz playing in the background of life, never too loud, never demanding, but always there. And yet, in the small silences of our nights together, something electric lingers. A spark that never fades, no matter how many sunsets we share or arguments we survive. That night, it wasn't about passion or lust. It was something deeper, something tender. The way his hand moved along my shoulder, as if asking for permission, not demanding it. It reminded me why I fell for him in the first place. It wasn't just the way he looked at me or the way he made me laugh when I least expected it. It was how he made me feel seen, even when I thought I was invisible. As his warmth melted into mine, a quiet truth wrapped around my heart: love doesn't always come with fireworks. Sometimes, it whispers. But this story isn't just about a moment. It's about everything leading up to it: the misunderstandings, the tired arguments about dinner, the late-night cuddles after long workdays. It's about real love. The kind that wakes you up not with loud declarations but with soft, steady breathing beside you at 2 a.m. This is our journey, messy, beautiful, sometimes broken, always human. And as the story unfolds, you'll see that even the smallest moments can carry the biggest emotions. I want you to be a part of this story. Have you ever had a night like this, where love felt both unexpected and inevitable? Drop a comment below and tell me your quiet love moments. Was it a simple glance? A midnight conversation? Or maybe a silent handhold that meant everything? I'll be reading every one of your stories. Also, vote in the poll: do you believe the strongest connections come in silence or words? And just when I thought the moment had passed, that maybe I had imagined the whole thing, David leaned in, and in a voice barely above a whisper, said something that made my heart pause. Something I wasn't ready to hear, or maybe, something I'd been waiting for all along. I opened my eyes just a little, only enough to see the outline of David's face in the moonlight. His eyes were on me, not in that hungry way you'd expect, but softer, almost like he was searching for something. Or maybe he was wondering if I was awake. I didn't say a word. I didn't move. I just breathed and let the moment settle, hoping he wouldn't stop whatever this was. And still, I couldn't quite figure out why this night felt different from all the others. Something was weighing on him. I could feel it in the way he held me, as if he was trying to say something without speaking. David and I hadn't been perfect lately. There had been distance. Not the loud kind, but the quiet kind that creeps in when two people stop listening closely. We both got busy: work, responsibilities, the everyday stress that makes you forget why you chose each other in the first place. Some days we hardly spoke until bedtime. And even then, our words were short, like checking off a to-do list. But tonight, under that soft light, it was as if time had slowed down just for us to feel something again. Something real. I remembered the first time we shared a bed, not like this, not so quiet and thoughtful. Back then, everything was louder. Our laughter, our dreams, our promises. We were younger, more fearless. I used to trace the small scar on his shoulder and ask how he got it. He would lie and make up a new story every time, just to make me laugh. And I always did. Now, I find myself staring at that same scar, wondering if I still know all of him. Wondering if he's been carrying stories he never told me. As David leaned closer, I could feel his breath near my neck. It sent a chill down my spine, not from fear, but from the feeling that something important was about to happen. He hesitated, then wrapped his arm around me, his hand gently resting on my stomach. The silence between us was heavy, but not uncomfortable. It was the kind of silence that comes just before a confession. But he said nothing. And I didn't dare ask. So I laid there, half awake, half dreaming, wondering, what was he thinking? What was he feeling? Was this his way of apologizing? Or saying goodbye? The next morning, everything felt normal on the surface. David was already up, standing by the kitchen counter, pouring coffee into our usual mismatched mugs. He smiled when he saw me, the same way he always did, like nothing had changed. But something had. I could feel it in my chest, heavy and unspoken. I wanted to ask him what last night meant, why he held me like that, why he didn't say anything, but the words stayed stuck somewhere between fear and pride. Instead, I sat across from him, sipping my coffee in silence, pretending that the lump in my throat was just from waking up too early. David started talking about work, about how one of his clients had backed out of a deal, and how his team might be reorganized. I nodded, responding with half-hearted words, but my mind kept drifting back to the way he looked at me in the dark. He was here, right in front of me, yet something about him felt miles away. Was he holding something back? Or had I become too quiet to notice when he stopped sharing pieces of himself? Later that day, I found his journal. I wasn't trying to snoop, it was just there, open on his desk like it wanted to be found. A single line caught my eye: some nights, I wonder if we're still choosing each other, or just remembering why we used to. I closed it before reading more, heart pounding, not sure if I had invaded his privacy or discovered something I needed to see. That one line echoed in my mind all day, especially when I caught him staring at me during dinner like he wanted to say something but didn't know how. And then there was Mira. She's my co-worker, kind, funny, the kind of person who notices small details. A few days ago, she said something that stuck with me. You and David have that type of love that feels like a quiet storm. Calm on the outside, but full of thunder underneath. I didn't know what to say to that. Maybe she was right. Maybe we were thunder holding its breath, waiting for the right moment to crack open the silence. There's a side of David I've always admired, how he carries his emotions like carefully folded shirts, neat and hidden. But maybe I stopped asking what was underneath. And maybe, just maybe, he got tired of waiting for me to notice. What do you think? Is love supposed to be loud, or does it whisper in moments like these? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Should Anya open up about what she read in the journal, or stay quiet and wait for David to speak first? And what do you think David's secret might be? Because that night, when we went to bed again, he pulled me close, closer than usual. And just when I thought he might finally say something, he didn't. And that silence said more than any words ever could. That night, the air in our bedroom felt heavier than usual, like the walls themselves were holding their breath. David was already in bed when I walked in, lying on his side, facing the window. I couldn't tell if he was asleep or just pretending. The soft sound of the ceiling fan spinning above us was the only thing breaking the silence, and even that felt too loud in the moment. I stood there for a second, watching him, trying to decide if I should say something, anything. But my body moved on its own. I slipped under the covers quietly, careful not to disturb him, even though I secretly hoped he'd reach for me like he had before. Instead, he stayed still. I turned to my side, our backs facing each other, but our thoughts probably dancing in the same uneasy rhythm. My mind wouldn't stop racing. I kept thinking about the journal, about the words he hadn't said, about the look in his eyes that morning. It all felt like a puzzle with just one missing piece, and the picture wouldn't make sense without it. I was holding my breath without realizing it, hoping he'd turn around, pull me closer, and say what was on his heart. But nothing came. Until, suddenly, he whispered my name. Soft. Hesitant. Like he wasn't sure I'd answer. I didn't speak. I couldn't. I just stayed still, trying to calm the loud thudding in my chest. Then he said something I never expected to hear. I've been feeling like I'm losing you. That single line shattered everything quiet inside me. My breath caught. I wanted to say, no, you haven't, but the truth is, I wasn't sure. Not because I didn't love him, but because I didn't know how long I'd been holding parts of myself back. And maybe he had been doing the same. Before I could speak, he turned to me slowly, finally closing the space between us. His hand brushed my arm gently. I didn't pull away. I just looked at him. In his eyes, I saw fear, but also something deeper. A question. A hope. Maybe a goodbye. Should she tell him everything she's been feeling? Or should she wait for him to open up first? What do you think he's truly afraid of losing? Share your thoughts in the comments. I wanted to answer him. I really did. But just as I opened my mouth, my phone buzzed on the nightstand, sharp and out of place in the quiet. We both glanced at it. I could feel his body tense. One message. One name on the screen. Mira. David didn't say anything. He just looked at me, then at the phone, then back at me. Not angry. Not jealous. Just confused. Like something shifted in his chest and he didn't know how to place it. I reached for it quickly, but it was too late. The moment was broken. Whatever honesty was about to happen between us slipped through the cracks again. I didn't know you talked to her outside of work, he said, his voice even, almost too calm. It's nothing, I replied too fast. Too defensive. But was it really nothing? The truth was, Mira had become someone I could talk to when the house felt too quiet, when David and I passed each other like ghosts in our own kitchen. We didn't talk about anything inappropriate, but the conversations had gone deeper lately, about love, about feeling disconnected, about fear. I didn't think I was hiding anything, until now. David sat up, running a hand through his hair, his jaw clenched. You've been talking to her about us? There was no point lying. I needed someone to talk to. Someone who listens. He didn't yell. He didn't accuse. That would have been easier. Instead, he got up, walked to the window, and stared outside for a long time. You could have talked to me. I tried, I whispered. But you were never really there. The silence that followed was colder than any argument. And in that moment, I realized something. Our biggest problem wasn't anger. It was distance. Slow, growing, invisible distance that made us strangers who still shared a bed. But then David said something I didn't expect. I met someone too. The words hit me like a slow punch to the chest. My ears rang. My breath caught. I didn't even ask who, my heart already assumed the worst. But he wasn't looking at me like someone who wanted to confess an affair. He looked broken. Like he was ashamed. I didn't cross any lines, he said quickly. But I thought about it. That's just as bad, isn't it? I couldn't speak. I didn't even know how to feel. Hurt. Betrayed. But also guilty. Because I'd been doing the same thing in my own way. Turning to someone else for emotional comfort when I should have been turning to him. What happens next? Will Anya confront Mira? Will David leave? Is their marriage too far gone, or is this just the moment they finally face everything they've been avoiding? Tell me in the comments, what would you do if your partner said that to you? David didn't move from the window, and I didn't move from the bed. The silence between us stretched so long it felt like a third person in the room, breathing heavily, waiting for one of us to make a decision. I finally stood up, clutching the phone in my hand like it held all the answers, even though it didn't. I walked slowly toward him, not sure what I would say until the words came out on their own. Maybe we both stopped showing up, but we're still here. Isn't that something? He turned, eyes glassy but focused. I don't know if it's enough. I reached for his hand. He let me. His fingers were colder than usual. I don't want to lose you, David. Not like this. Not without trying, really trying. Something in him softened. Or maybe it was me finally dropping my guard. We stood there in the stillness of the room, forehead to forehead, just breathing each other in, like we were both trying to remember how we fit. That night, we stayed up talking until our voices gave out. We spoke truths we had buried deep, his loneliness, my guilt, how we both let love turn into routine. We cried, we laughed in short bursts, and we forgave. Or at least, we started to. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. The next morning, I called Mira. I told her everything. She listened, quietly, then simply said, I knew he still loved you. I could see it every time he said your name. I thanked her for being there, and then I let her go. But just as I felt like things were finding their balance again, just as David and I were sipping coffee in the kitchen like old times, he placed an envelope in front of me. My heart dropped for a second, afraid of what it could be. But it wasn't what I thought. Inside was a photo. Us. From 5 years ago. And on the back, in his handwriting, still choosing you. Every day. I looked up at him, speechless. And then he smiled and said, I planned to leave this if I had to walk away. But I don't want to. And just when I thought the story had found its ending, my phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't Mira. It was an unknown number. And the message simply read, You don't know the whole story. I stared at the message on my phone, my hands suddenly colder than they had been moments ago. You don't know the whole story. My heart beat a little faster, but I didn't want to panic. Not yet. David noticed my shift and asked quietly, What is it? I turned the phone so he could read it too. His eyebrows pulled together in confusion. Do you recognize the number? I shook my head. We didn't reply. We didn't need more mystery. Not after everything we had just come through. Instead, we sat in silence for a moment, both of us wondering, was this someone from his past? Mine? Mira? The next day, curiosity got the better of me. I replied with a simple, Who is this? Hours passed. No response. And slowly, the fear that had gripped me the night before began to fade. Whoever it was, if they had something important to say, they would. Or maybe it was someone trying to stir up the past when we were finally learning how to leave it behind. David and I kept moving forward. We started cooking dinner together again, laughing at inside jokes that we had forgotten over the years. We even went on a weekend trip to the mountains, no phones, no distractions, just us. It felt like starting over, but with history. The kind of restart that knows where all the wounds are but chooses to heal anyway. We talked openly about everything. About the times we hurt each other without meaning to. About how easy it is to drift apart when you think the other person will always be there. We promised never to let silence become our answer again. As for Mira, she texted once more, just to say she was glad I chose to stay and fight for what I had. I didn't reply, but I appreciated the grace in her message. That unknown number never texted again. Sometimes, the past tries to visit you just as you're finally closing the door. But not every knock deserves an answer. So here we are now, still not perfect, still learning, but with our hands tightly held in the middle of every messy, beautiful, human day. And if I ever forget why I stayed, I only have to look at that photo David left me 5 years ago. A quiet reminder that real love doesn't always roar. It whispers. I'm still here. Tell me in the comments, what would you have done? Should Anya have replied to that message? Do you think the unknown number will return? Would you want to see what happens next in a sequel? Let me know below, and if you felt something during this journey, hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe for more real love stories.